The Mix Minus podcast is brought to you by Big League Pillows. Big League Pillows are customizable jersey pillows for your little one, for your big one, for you. For adults, for kids, they're especially targeted at kids, but you can pick your kind of sport. You can pick the name on the front of the jersey, the name on the back, and the number, and they are great. You can get them at bigleaguepillows.com, and if you use the promo code Mix Minus, I can get you free shipping, and shipping can be costly when you're dealing with a pillow. So that's at bigleaguepillows.com. Customizable jersey pillows for your MVP, and the joke is the MVP is the most valuable pillow as well. Guys, how are you doing? It is May 20th, a Sunday, a beautiful Sunday after we've had a lot of rain this week, which is to be expected. You need that rain to really make everything be verdant and vibrant and look beautiful, and to get many of the telltale signs of spring and summer in effect. I just got back from doing my lawn, first time this year doing my lawn. Because of the way the schedule has broken, I have not done my lawn, and I'm about a week too late on that. I'm very similar with my haircuts. I end up waiting a week too long. And I always know when my hair is too long because I start playing with it like crazy. I have just this like crazy tick for playing with my hair. But as long as I keep it short and then I use gel to just kind of flip it up in the front and to make it go forward, I never touch it. But then even with gel, when it gets too long, I start playing with it. And when I play with it, it becomes like a compulsion. And just to fight off that compulsion, I will go and get my hair cut. And that is kind of my sign to go do that as quick as possible, because if I go too many days with playing with it, it just drives me nuts. And you just get that feeling of obsession and compulsion that we all find in some respects. We all have our own little ticks, and that is one for me, so I keep it in control with short hair and gel. And with a lawn, it's very similar. You let that sucker go too long, and it gets real tall looking. You look like you are the family on the block who doesn't care about their lawn, and that's an important thing when you're keeping up with the Joneses in the suburbs. And I like a lawn to a degree. My wife loves like lawn care. She doesn't love doing it, but she loves having a nice lawn, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I'm talking like a nice lawn, like a country club lawn. I like having a lawn that's well kept, that's mowed. But when you start getting into these mulch beds and you have the weeds growing, and you have to go bed by bed picking weeds and pulling them and doing all that, I'm not into that. I am a wham bam thank you man type of person, ma'am type of person. I like to get my mowing done. I have a nice riding mower, and then I like to do some trimming, and then I like to be done somewhere in the vicinity of about an hour. I really don't want to go much longer. I don't love lawns like that where I'm obsessive compulsive about playing with my hair, but not about my lawn. I don't need it to look like a country club. It would be nice. And you'd probably have to pay for that. You'd have to pay for professionals to come and do that as opposed to me. But that starts to add up in price. I mean, that's a lot of money. And I am still counting my money at this stage in my life. I kind of swung for the fences a little bit where I'm living. And I'm expecting to grow into this home over time. So I'm not quite paycheck to paycheck, my wife and I, but we're all kind of struggling. You all got to pay attention to what is coming in and going out. And to me, it is too much of a luxury to pay for someone to do it. And I just don't care about a lawn to that degree where I'm going to pay that level of money to do it. But I got out there, mowed, everything was good. I listened to podcasts. I listened to The Economist while I'm doing it on my riding mower. And it's a nice hour where no one's going to bother you because you're doing a chore. And it's a very well appreciated chore. Even though I always hate it when I come back in from doing the lawn and my wife will go out to do a chore or something, and then she'll call and go, "Oh, there's still, what about that thing over on the side?" And it like drives me nuts. It's a pet peeve. I can't stand when I just did as much work as I could and I worked as hard as I could. And again, I'm not a country club groundsman, but I can't stand when I do all that work and then it's already being nitpicked. I almost hang up. I can't take it. A couple of things here. I saw a neat little thing on 9to5mac.com, which is a nice website for Mac and Apple product reviews and coverage. Sleep Cycle alarm clock. I don't know if it's called that anymore. It might just be called Sleep Cycle. It's a really good app. I've used it for many years on and off, mostly 5 or 6 years ago, and then since I haven't really used it. But what it does is you basically turn it on when you're about to go to bed, and then it monitors your sleep through the night. There's been many iterations that have led to its current state. It used to be where you would have to take your phone and put it face down at the top right corner of your pillow, and then it kind of uses the accelerometer on the phone to deduce, based on your motion and movement, how your sleep is going, and it bases it on REM and all kinds of research and all kinds of background information, and then gives you a pretty good accounting when you wake up of how your sleep went and how many peaks and valleys it had, and how long your sleep went and how true your sleep was. Because with this, you actually have to tell it, okay, I'm going to bed now. So it has a pretty good feeling for when to or how to deduce how long your sleeping time was. The other neat thing it has is this alarm clock feature where it plays on that information and that what it's able to accrue during the night to wake you up at the most beneficial time for you. So say you have an alarm clock that goes off at 6 a.m. If you have that go off at 6 a.m., you might be halfway through REM sleep. You might be in deep sleep. And based on when that triggers to wake you up, you're going to be a groggy person if it's in deep sleep and it's waking you up. So this Sleep Cycle alarm clock, what it'll do is it'll follow your sleep through the night based on the aforementioned motions and movement with the accelerometer of the phone. And then it wakes you up within a 30-minute window or so of when you want to get up. It wakes you up. I think basically the 30-minute window, the end of that window is when you tell it you want to wake up. So it'll use like 30 minutes up to that wake up time to figure if you're like coming out of deep sleep in REM, and it might wake you up like 15 minutes earlier than you thought or 25 minutes earlier than you had planned to wake up. But because it's waking you up when you're at the lighter stages of sleep, you're less groggy, you're more alert, and you're in a better position to start your day. So it's a nice little feature. I'm not really committed to it after many years. I ended up getting into the Fitbit, which tracked your sleep as well, and it had a nice little feature with the Fitbit piece. You know, the Fitbit you would wear on your belt in a little belt loop thing, a little cover thing that you like hook to your belt. And then at night it moves to a little wristband, and that would track your sleep as well. And then that would wake you up with a tap on the wrist, kind of like what we've come to understand with Apple Watches, the way they tap you. So this thing would tap you on the wrist and it would wake you up quietly, so it's not waking up your significant other with an alarm clock and getting you both up at the same time. Because one of the funny things actually with the Sleep Cycle alarm clock is my wife would get up earlier than me. And because she would get up earlier than me, if she got up earlier within that 30-minute window where the Sleep Cycle is planning to wake you based on when you told it, because your wife got up, it kind of dominoed into you moving around, and then all of a sudden the Sleep Cycle alarm clock starts going off to wake you up. So you were kind of taken out of REM sleep by your significant other, or you were taken out of deep sleep by your significant other getting up, which then dominoed into you getting up. So that was a weird situation. But with the Fitbits, it would tap you, so it's not waking up the other person. So that was a nice thing. And then I've kind of moved on, and then I've been an Apple Watch user or wearer for several years now. Is it really several years? I think it is. Maybe 2 years or so, if not longer. And so I would wear that. And the Apple Watch, because it is something that uses up its charge for the most part in a day, you charge it at night. It was never meant when it originally launched to be something you wore overnight, the way you might with some of these other devices to track sleep. But over time, it's gotten a little better. The battery's maybe gotten a little better, but mostly people realize they can kind of flash charge this thing when they're taking a shower or when they're getting ready in the morning. And that flash charge gives you enough juice to get through the day. And then maybe at the end of the night when you're getting dressed into your PJs or, your nightwear, I like to wear like basketball stuff. You can put it on the little stand to charge it, and then all that kind of flash charging gives it enough juice to get through the different things, and you can end up wearing it at night. I don't love the idea of wearing an Apple Watch at night because it's like a substantial device in a way. And you wear it in the day just like you would a watch, but people aren't wearing watches at night. They're traditional, normal timepieces. So this just felt strange. The Fitbit was a little different because it was a nice kind of soft wristband with the little Fitbit device, just this tiny little thing that could fit basically like within an inch of your your thumb and your forefinger. It would just go in there, so it didn't feel like it was unwieldy in any way. And so with the watch, it's big, and there's almost something nice to it just going on the stand and your wrist being free at night. But it's come around now where people are starting to use it as that sleep device because they don't want to own several different devices when it's already absurd that we are tracking ourselves like we're some high-level athletes, when in reality we're just getting up and going to our computer job and maybe weekend warrioring our runs and doing some workouts in the week. It's not like we need to be optimal for our jobs. I mean, I'm going to pound coffee, I'm going to do all this, so it doesn't need to be it. But we enjoy the idea of the quantified self and tracking all aspects of our life. And it is nice to sometimes know how your sleep went and what you can expect for your day based on that 6 to 8 to 9 hours of unconscious time. That is a large chunk of your day. That is a third of your day, if I do my math right, that you're not even aware. I mean, and you can see it come across physically. If you fall asleep watching your iPad and you maybe are laying on two pillows that you normally would remove one and just sleep on the one pillow when you go to bed, you fall asleep in a strange position, you wake up the next day, you got a neck crink that could be stuck there for several days. So that nighttime activity can be something that can affect your physical self, and it can obviously affect your mental self. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in sleep. I have the most weird stuff going on of anybody. I will get up and yell and do all kinds of crazy things. I will get toilet paper and drop it on my wife. In the times we've been together, I will do weird stuff. So we're getting some demons out at night. There's some things happening. And so quantifying that can be an important thing. I actually ended up doing a sleep study where I wore all this kind of paraphernalia all over my head, and I looked like I was going in for brain surgery, and they hook you up to all these sensors, and then people watch you in like a cockpit as you sleep, and they deduce whether you need some kind of sleeping aid or whether you need some kind of machine to help you sleep. And a lot of times what you find in these kind of sleep facilities are a spouse wanting to curtail the snoring of typically their husband. And so you go through this whole process to get insurance to cover you to get a CPAP machine. And a CPAP machine basically is a machine that pushes air through this thing called a nasal pillow. You put this little headset on that's not too in the way or unwieldy. And then this nasal pillow, it's called, sits beneath your two nostrils and pushes air up through this nasal pillow, pushes air in there constantly. And you kind of have this this elephant like tube that goes to the machine on your side table, and it pushes the air through that machine with some distilled water as well, which you have to fill up in this little little container of water. And then it pushes this kind of filtered air with this distilled water through your nose. And then by forcing it through your nose, it makes you breathe through your nose and you're not snoring. So you end up having a nice sleep. Half the time I'm falling asleep while watching things, and I fall asleep before I can put the thing on. The best thing to do is to put that thing on and then watch what you're doing, even though it doesn't feel very comfortable. It's not great to be awake with this CPAP machine, because when you're awake, you're very aware of your breathing. When you're asleep, it's just, you're not even there, and it's just making you breathe through your nose. So you're not thinking about, oh my God, I'm not getting enough oxygen by breathing through my nose, and I could just open my mouth. And then when you open your mouth, it's like the air is sucking through your throat. It's a weird situation. It gets very, it becomes all encompassing in your head. So it's not great to wear when you're awake. That goes for when you wake up in the morning too. It's not one of these machines that'll help you sleep in. You'll get very good sleep as long as you're asleep. But the minute you get up in the morning, if you're up to any degree, it's hard to go back to bed because you get focused on that breathing aspect again. But it's been a good machine. And when I remember to wear it, from the beginning of the night, from before going to bed until I wake up, you will have a very refreshing sleep. I have to try to remember to keep that thing on because my wife will get angry and then she's kind of battering me around at like 4 a.m. going, put your sleep machine on, because I guess I'm snoring. And I'm in that state where I'm like, leave me alone. Don't tell me what to do. And then she gets mad at me. And then I get mad at her because I'm half asleep. And when I'm half asleep, I am ornery. I am not a happy person. And she's more aware when she gets up, and I've obviously woken her up from snoring. So it just becomes a thing. And a lot of times I'll just go, okay, I'll put it on, and I just put my head back down and go to bed. So not nice. But all this leads around to say Sleep Cycle has an Apple Watch application as well. Again, I don't love the idea of wearing the Apple Watch when I sleep. It just feels weird to me, but you can use it. And what this will do, which is kind of a neat feature that this Sleep Cycle has on the Apple Watch, as you start to snore, however it's able to tell that you're doing that, it'll start subtly tapping you on the wrist to wake you up, almost like a significant other, almost like Melanie saying, Matt, put your sleep machine on. Now, if this thing could start through AI, speaking to me, maybe through the Google Home on the side of my bed saying, Matt, put on your CPAP machine, that would be great. But this is kind of fun innovation, using what is at your disposal on a watch with this Taptic engine and allowing it to play into the workflow of how this Sleep Cycle application works. So it'll wake you up, and I think it'll also use much like that Fitbit aspect I was saying, where it'll tap you on the wrist to wake you up as well. So all these things are great when you think about them, and then when you get towards nighttime and it's 10:30 and you're half asleep, you forget to actually do them because it's almost as many things going to bed as you have to account for when you wake up in the morning to go to work. It's like, oh, I got to get my lunch. Oh, I got to get these clothes on. I have to get, this watch on. In my case, I have to get my son up. I have to do all this. I have to get his lunch to go to school. I have to get these carrots cooked for the nanny coming over. And so you have all these kind of steps you have to hit, and that's before I've even had coffee in the morning, which makes it a lot tougher. Then I have to take the garbage out. There's so many things, and now you're bringing that to your nighttime activity and routine. I don't know if that's the best thing. If I got to put I got to put the watch on. I got to make sure the watch is flash charging during the day so I have enough juice on it. I got to get the watch on, start the app, probably on the phone, and then the watch. I got to put my CPAP machine on, and then you got devices all over the place, and you're just sitting there going, is it all worth it? People are trying to innovate for this small slice of user base that would even understand how to use all these different apps, right? I mean, think about your parents who are the worst snoring, the guilty parties of snoring as they get older and all the things that happen in their nasal canals and the sagging and all that stuff. Can you imagine like your parent setting up an Apple Watch and then remembering to hit this thing and to do this? And it's just a lot of things to take in. I think that's one of the difficulties of technology right now is they're trying to innovate and make consumer products, but it's so far down the line of being an expert in these products that the complexity, which is attempting to be made simple, has a huge learning curve to even be at that position. So how big is the audience who would be able to take advantage of it? I don't know, but it's a cool little product, I think. Another random thing, my wife and I have been watching Big Little Lies finally, that HBO miniseries, which I think is actually coming out with a second season. Very good show. I would highly recommend it, especially if you're looking for one of those shows that as a husband and wife you want to watch together. Well done, high-level actresses and actors, good source material, or IP, as they would say in the business. Really nice show to watch. We've been enjoying that when we can, even though my wife has been gone for like a week at nights having these different professional engagements. Good show, though. Google had their I/O conference, which is sort of their version of when Apple has their conference where they announce all of the new products, hardware, software, all the things they're working on in the labs that they're going to be releasing to their users and to society at large. And a lot of neat things always come out of them. It's all become iterative and not that exciting now because there's only so many new things people can make anymore, it feels like. But Google did have a doozy. They had something called Duplex. And what Duplex does is it uses artificial intelligence and very human sounding voices to make reservations for you, to make appointments for you on your behalf. You just open up the app and you just say, hey, Google, can you make an appointment for me for my hair between 10 and 12 on May 28th? And then somehow in the background, and there's actually been a little bit of backlash to this product since it was announced, where people are saying, wait a second, was this thing, can we get because Google did a very impressive presentation of this thing actually working in the real world. And people are going, hey, critics are going, hey, we got to get, this was the actual call that happened from the AI to the hair salon to the Chinese restaurant, which is the hardest one to figure because even non-AI folks or normal humans have a difficult time talking to the Chinese food lady and confirming orders and reservations. That can always be tough. But there has been backlash where critics want to get more information on who these hair salons were that the AI was talking to. Was this an edited down version of the AI discussion? Was there more confusion happening? Because this thing was so buttoned up that it looked like humanity's over. This thing did so well. But it almost made me think, even at the time before this backlash came out, the presentation to me, was it more like the first iPhone, where you had to follow the exact protocol for the service to seem seamless? And Apple ultimately came through with that promise. The iPhone has been one of the most hot-selling hardware devices of the last, should I say 100 years? Is that crazy? I mean, no, obviously the last 10 years. It's been out for since 2007, I think. But it's just an unbelievable device. And what you come to find out when you read about it is that first presentation, which looked very polished and it looked like the iPhone was figured out, it was not figured out at all. And they had to almost do exactly 6 to 7 to 8 specific things to make the presentation come off seamless, and that if any one of those things had been done in a different order or succession, the whole thing would have fallen apart. And I was wondering about that with the Duplex. And look, when you're doing a presentation, you have to kind of have it look magical and be so edited that that it looks as polished as it did. I can't kind of kill for that. I don't imagine this thing's going to work as seamlessly as it did in the demos. I mean, it was so impressive when you were watching this thing. And the AI would call a hair salon to make an appointment for the person who asked it to do that. It would call a Chinese restaurant to make a reservation for 4 a week later. It was calling a whole bunch of things. And if this actually works, wow, is that impressive. I just don't think it's going to work to that level because there's just, I know the technology's there, they say, and I know there's all this machine learning that goes into it, and that all ways that a conversation can go are accounted for. But it just doesn't feel to me like it's always going to work that way. And you might have somebody at the hair salon dealing with a customer in real life and only half paying attention. And it could just get difficult. It's hard enough when you're a human trying to set those things up. And now you're going to throw a robot at it. And I also am I guess we'll come to believe in this and trust it as it is used by society at large. But I feel like it's going to mess up your order. It's going to mess up your appointment. And how are you going to be able to edit for that? And I also don't think people live this way where, I don't. I have a very open schedule, and I have a knowledge of when my workday is, and I have a knowledge of when meetings might be. But it's not like I just say to an AI, hey, just do this. Because I don't have my whole schedule kind of figured out on any kind of device, every moment accounted for. So it seems strange, and it feels like, I don't know if you can trust it, but aren't we just going to end up where AI is talking to AI anyway? If this actually works, won't there not be a human on the other end at the Chinese restaurant, especially the Chinese restaurant where understanding what is being said on both sides can be difficult, to say the least? Won't companies won't restaurants like that, won't hair salons, won't all these places just use AI to field the call as well. And so AI is just talking to AI and setting things up in a very linear way. But I just would be nervous of not having been on the call and made kind of made the appointment myself. But really, I guess that's how receptionists are too, right? Or digital assistants or executive assistants to people who are CEOs or C-level important people. They're just making appointments on the behalf of the person they work for. So it's very similar like that. I guess a lot of us just don't live in those circles. A lot of us don't understand how that works, where you give yourself over to somebody else to figure out how to slot your schedule together. But, I hate the idea of a real person talking to an AI on the other end. I don't like that you're using this technology and that the other person is talking to a bot in many ways. And I don't like the idea that there will be inevitably many opportunities where the person on the actual human fielding the call knows it's a bot. And then they're just talking to a bot. Like, it feels really strange. Now, I hate calling places. I'm a guy, I hate calling places. But, in that regard, this makes me somebody who would be a prime candidate to want to use these. I hate calling my cable company. I hate calling doctor's appointments. I just hate calling. I like texting, or I like using email, or I just kind of like using interfaces online that allow you to handle the things yourself. I feel impatient to talk to people on the phone. Now, maybe we need a service that uses algorithms to reach out to someone we haven't talked to in a while. That's kind of cool. This service is calling a hair appointment. It's calling a restaurant. It's calling this or that. So it's calling things that, how many opportunities do you have to really utilize those things? But to me, the cool thing, especially for guys, is if we all have an AI and serendipitously it understands what we're listening to, what we're doing, what we're searching, and maybe reaches out to the AI of someone you haven't talked to in 5 to 8 years. Now, there has to be context because maybe there was a blow up while you're not talking to that person. But to me, if there was this background kind of neural network going on that is trying to set people back up who haven't talked to each other in a while. Like, case in point, 2 weeks ago, I was listening to hot water music while I was reading The New Yorker, having my coffee before heading into work in the morning, where I wait out at my favorite coffee place. And I heard this song by Hot Water Music, and it triggered in me, it brought to mind this bassist who I played in a band with. And I was not friends with this guy before being in this band. I wasn't particularly friends with him while I was in the band, and I haven't kept in touch really in any way after being in the band. We're all Facebook friends, we're Instagram friends, and you'll like each other's photos, things like that. So you do kind of see that there is some activity between you, but it's not like you're talking to this person. Well, I heard this bass line and I was feeling really kind of enthused. And so I randomly just popped onto, I think, Facebook Messenger, found him and shared the song and said, "This made me think about you. This sounds just like your bass playing." And he wrote right back. He's like, "Oh man, that's such a compliment. I've heard this song too. This is great. How cool." But to me, that was me being like, an active participant in my life. It was kind of me jumping into a conversation with someone where I would never do that. And maybe it was the coffee speaking. Maybe it was the feeling of the music raising me up on a Thursday, knowing there was only one more day to the week after that. Who knows? But it made me do it. And I was thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great if these AI systems were doing this for you? It was kind of occurring to you, hey, this bass line. Hey, find Arash and tell him this note. And then the AI talks to the AI. Or guys never go out with their friends, especially when they get married and have kids. Women are really good at staying together. They're really good as friends at making sure they're seeing each other on a semi-regular basis and keeping a discussion alive, where 5 to 7 of them will get together or come up with plans. Guys just don't do it. So we kind of lay dead on the road, never seeing our friends anymore because it's just not in our personality to plan. Boy, would an AI system be great for this, where an AI system can go, "Oh man, you spent so much time with this person at one time. Let's reach out and see if these two people can get together." And the AIs can plan it out and somehow work with your schedule And then all of a sudden you're looking ahead at your schedule and it's like, oh my gosh, this Saturday I'm going to see Tom, or I'm going to see my old buddy, whatever his name is. Or, I mean, that would be cool to me. That would be a really kind of neat, my AI will talk to your AI type of deal. I mean, it would be that is something that brings people together. And look, there are bots on Facebook, and Facebook is the thing that's supposed to bring us together and only really makes us be, very semi together in a digital framework where we're logged into an app and we're kind of liking each other's things, but we're not really conversing with people. At most, we're commenting, but many of us are really just lurking and watching and seeing what people are doing without having to jump in and ask them. And so it would be nice to have something that forged real world get-togethers again, that just knew, hey, I haven't talked to this guy in so long. And maybe it sees on your Google search, you're looking up that person to see where they are in their professional life, which we all do. Isn't that the funny thing with LinkedIn too? You'll look up somebody on Google and then try to ascertain what they're doing via LinkedIn without hitting the LinkedIn link, because you don't want that LinkedIn trigger to tell them that you viewed their profile. That's the creepy thing with LinkedIn. I know it makes for transparency, I guess, and I know it pushes you to try to buy the premium service so that you can have those alerts turned off, so you don't have to know you're looking at people, what they're doing. But that to me would be kind of neat. If an AI could do that, if it could set up a meeting where I look ahead at my week and all of a sudden there's like I look ahead and there's like 3 get-togethers planned over the next month with people I haven't seen in a while, but I've been really looking forward to seeing. That to me would be very, very cool. So this week, I was pretty much on my own with my son every single night. My wife was playing in the middle school production of Mary Poppins, which I went to see last night. I am blown away by kids acting, especially when they act at really high levels. This production, middle schoolers, 5th to 8th graders, this production of Mary Poppins was so impressive. I was in complete shock. And they have professional musicians playing in the pit, my wife being one of them, and a handful of others, stipend position. They're being paid to do that. And it was just an unbelievable show. I'm honestly blown away when I see young kids acting. When you see how hard acting appears for even adults, and when you see young kids just acting at a really high level, it's amazing. But she was away like the whole week because of the rehearsals and the shows themselves. So she was getting home real late. It's funny when you're married and you have a kid, you kind of look forward to being alone sometimes. You look forward to just having your own schedule, having your own food. And the other weird thing is for me, drinking. I drink every single night my wife's not around. That's really scary, because if my wife ever left me or something, I would have to account for that fact. I'd have to go back to being okay with myself without having a drink. I'm not going crazy. I'm having a couple glasses of wine. I'm having one of my new favorite drinks, Sprite Zero and vodka. Grey Goose, top shelf would be the best. Or I'm having a beer or 2. And I did that all week. Now that starts to wear me down. When I have drinks, when I have alcohol each night, I don't get a great sleep, I think, even if I'm not drinking to excess, which I'm not doing. I just have enough to kind of feel comfortable, have my iPad set up, have my little dinner I'm having, and it's just a nice thing. But I just wish I could do that and then feel like as refreshed as you do when you don't drink in the morning. There's just something about it that it happens. But why do I always drink when she leaves? It's like I'm a kid whose parents are away. I'm like a 17-year-old kid who's raiding his parents' liquor cabinet and then putting water in the vodka to make it look like it's not empty. But one of the nights, there was a massive storm. I think it was Tuesday. So Tuesday afternoon, on a day that was beautiful for the majority of the day. I think it got up to 90. And it was sunny and it was beautiful. And then all of a sudden, from our office windows, which are 9 stories up, you started to see weird things. It was almost like the Wizard of Oz. Like we saw pants flying by our window 9 stories up, and you just saw things kind of fluttering up in the air in ways that you don't see normally and just didn't feel right. It felt like some air system was making things rise up and was almost making gravity not real. I mean, that's how intense it was. And you just kind of see the trees bending a certain way. Nothing felt right. And so I had to get home that night, I think because my mom had to leave early and she was watching my son. So I had to get home. So I left a little early. It took me 30 minutes to get out of Newark though, because of just this feeling, this impending feeling that something bad was happening, and a lot of other people were kind of getting out of it. But I made my way. The wind was nuts. And then I got towards my area, towards my home, and it was insane damage. There were trees down all over the place on electric wires. At one point, the main road turned into half of one side of the road with cones outlining it because an electric pole had actually fallen on like a building or onto the ground on the side and took the wires with it. It was insane. And so my mom had said we lost power. And so I got home and power was out and we were getting alerts that don't look forward to power coming back soon. This damage is extensive. And so I do have to say, when power goes out, I'm not that bothered. I've almost been thinking that a conservational type of thing might be like if a state like New Jersey said, okay, once a month, we're going to have a 12-hour power out on purpose. Think of how much energy it'll conserve. And it makes you also just appreciate electricity. We don't appreciate electricity. We don't appreciate internet. We don't appreciate anything because they're just there. They're always in our presence. They're ever present. And so you don't appreciate how ridiculous it is until it's gone. And you also kind of appreciate it being gone for a minute. So if I knew there was going to be a 12-hour period, let's say 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. every month, on the 20th a month, it's going to be a 12-hour outage in your state on purpose. We'll conserve some stuff. Think about how much energy saved. And it kind of gives, I don't know if it gives the electricity some time to reboot or gives them time to do work. I don't know. But it allows you to kind of have that excitement of not having electricity, but not having it for long, not having it so long that it's ruining your fridge. Like 12 hours, you can make sure that you got your food together before it goes out and then keep that refrigerator closed for those 12 hours and that freezer closed. And then by the time it comes on, it's not going to be really any worse for the wear, I'm thinking. But that feeling of being off is actually kind of inspiring for a minute. It's kind of nice when you have daylight receding and the weather's not bad right now. Obviously, it's in the middle of May and it's getting dark the latest it does in the year. So that's kind of neat. But when I got home and I took my son up a little early, we read some books while we still had light. And then I put him down and then I just went downstairs and kind of had pretzels and some wine. And I was reading as it got darker. And you're just sort of not worried about anything. And you start to appreciate what you're missing with the internet being out, with electricity being out. And it's kind of nice. It's not bad. Now, did it suck that I had to eat a cold chicken burger and sides and all that stuff? Yeah. I would have liked to have maybe heated it up a little, even though I was trying to use the aim and flame to heat my little chicken burger, which was a dumb idea. But it was kind of nice just sitting in the dark at night, going up. And I was trying to also, because it was game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals with the Cavaliers and the Celtics. I really wanted to see that game. And so I got upstairs and you don't have your charge, right? Like there's no electricity at the moment. So there's no ability to charge your phone. And so I thought to myself, well, I still have like 10 gigs left on my monthly cellular internet, and that runs out in 3 days. So I'm going to just watch the Cavaliers game on my phone on YouTube TV, and I'll just use the cellular feed and watch parts of the game. I couldn't believe how bad it was. I couldn't even tell who was playing. It was so pixelated, and it was just like it was not worth it. It was just very difficult to watch. And I was also, when you can't charge something, you're so worried about it running down. So I was doing that. I tried to listen on Sirius XM radio on the app a little bit. That was nice. And I couldn't believe how quick the game actually went away because the Cavs were up. And then all of a sudden, when I'm trying to watch through these different apps and everything, then they're down like a good amount out of nowhere. So that was weird. But it wasn't bad. And then, my wife got home and she's a little more anxious and she's upset and she's thinking about the food and all this stuff. And when are we going to have power and who's coming over the next day? And my mind is at ease all the time. Hers gets anxious, especially when things go wrong. It's not anxious when the status quo is being held. But if things start to go wrong, her anxiety quadruples. And it starts to bleed into your thinking and doing all this. But I have to say, everyone slept well that night. And it really makes me wonder if this whole idea about all the waves that are flying around from Wi-Fi and all these devices we have and all this, if they're kind of penetrating our bodies in some way that's reorienting our central nervous system, right? You kind of hear this stuff, and some people will have their own blackouts so that electricity isn't coursing through them, or electricity or Wi-Fi or all that stuff. And I was wondering, everybody had a good night's sleep, including my son. And I was like, maybe there is something to that. But I would love to have an outage, just because if I knew it was coming, I would at work, I'd make sure to get all the things downloaded I might want to watch. I like kind of hoarding away things like a squirrel with nuts, get all these shows, get these 3 episodes downloaded, get these 3 episodes of this show, and just kind of, you're glamping, right? Isn't that what they call it? Glam camping. We're in a home, but we're sort of camping. We don't have the electricity. We don't have the full arsenal of the things that we would watch and do. We don't have light. And you just kind of, rally around what you can do. And there's a nice feeling to that for a minute. You're not presiding over an entire aircraft carrier like a lot of our homes might be, or how we feel like our homes might be. But I'll tell you, the next morning, my wife was like, well, you got to get this generator going. We do have a generator, and we have a plug-in generator that can hook into our house. We had it done shortly after Hurricane Sandy, which had us out for many, many days. I think we were out for a week, but the road adjacent to us was out for 2 weeks. And so we did get a generator at that time, and then we got we got basically this 6 fuse board that can hook to a generator. So I have to pull my generator around the other side of the house by where our bedroom is. And then I hook the generator into this kind of large plug on the side of the house. And then once you get the generator started, you go down in the basement, and then you flip these switches for these six switches that will power various parts of your house. So with a 6,500 watt with a 8,000 capacity, I think it is, ceiling capacity generator, you can pretty much get about 6 different switches on, 6 fuses. And a lot of that is, process of elimination. When the person comes to your house to set this thing up, because it's a totally different kind of board next to your normal electric fuse box. It's a separate one, very modern looking, with the switches that say generator off and line. Line means your normal electric line coming in when you're not out, right? And then you flip it up to generator, and then it's pulling from that generator that you've turned on outside, or you've pulled, in my case, because it wasn't starting. But that turns on, and when the person comes, the electrician comes to set this up, you go through the different fuses and you make decisions on what you would hook to this generator, because you got to make that decision once. So you got your refrigerator, you might have your kitchen, you might have a bathroom with no access to windows, your family room. I do wish we hooked up our room that has the internet, because many people have told me they don't always lose their internet when the electric goes out. So that's good to know. But I guess worst comes to worst, I could always feed an extension cord into there to keep that going, whichever. But we have our bedroom. We have some things hooked up. So you're it's not a perfect life. I don't love a generator because, one, you have to fill it up with gas. You got to make sure you have gas at the ready, and then you got to make sure to go get more at a time when everybody else is trying to get more, and there's that feeling of society about to break down at these gas stations. And then you get home, you got to fill it up. The weather's not great. You're sort of in a state of anxiety to a degree, even though I'm not very anxious, but you have enough anxiety where you're not going to appreciate this much. I also hate how loud generators are, and I hate hearing them all the time and then listening to when they hiccup or listening for when they're going to go out. And you just always feel like it's precarious. Yes, they got your lights on in your house and your fridge is going, but you hear that thing going all the time. It's like the heart underneath the floorboards. You notice it all the time, and how loud it is makes it just not feel good. And I don't like that. And I know that filling that thing up is going to let you run for maybe 4 or 5 hours, and you got to have more ready to go. And so I tried to tell my wife, you really should only plan to run this for those 5 hours a day. Fill up a tank, let it run out, and pick your 5. And usually the best 5 will be maybe 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. until 10, or 11. So you basically have the generator riding you out until you fall asleep. And then that thing just kicks off on its own once the gas runs out. It's fine. But I went outside on 7 a.m. in the morning after we got up at 6. I went outside to hook this generator up to the house. I got it hooked up. It starts raining. I got to build sort of a teepee out of this plywood I have, and then I use the grill cover and put it on that. It was a nice little tent I actually put together. I do have to give myself credit for that. But I'm trying to start this thing. And one of the things when you got a generator, you're supposed to, I say in air quotes, start it once a month. Let it run for 15, 20 minutes. Just keep that engine limber, knowing it could start up. When you let it sit for months and months and months, it might start. It could get flooded, but it's probably not going to start. And so, as I said, I have to wheel this thing around to the side of my house near my bedroom. I'm trying to start this thing. It's like 15, 20 minutes. It's raining. I feel like I'm in some movie. And my wife picks up the window and starts yelling down at me. It felt like an anti-Romeo and Juliet, right? Juliet's in the second floor. Oh, Romeo, Romeo. She's saying, oh, Matt, you stupid idiot. I mean, she wasn't quite saying that, but I got the drift. And it was sort of this idea that I should have started this thing. It was all the woulda, coulda, shouldas, right? And I'm sitting there. I'm committed. I'm going to get this thing started. Don't you worry about it. Get back inside. I'm getting angry because I'm getting wet. And then you have so much physical activity. This thing does have an electric start, a button. But if you don't run this thing regularly, and look, this thing has been run to a degree. I've run it at least every couple months. But since Sandy, we haven't had any need to run it at all, like for any long period of time. That's how good our luck has been since Sandy. Everybody went out and got these generators, and then you really don't need them. We have a sort of modern grid where I live. Our house is only about 20 plus years old. So when we're out, we're not even usually out very long, knock on wood. But I'm pulling this thing. It's like doing a hardcore CrossFit workout, trying to pull it and pushing the choke and doing all this stuff. And when you don't do it a lot, you also forget what the mechanisms and processes are for this generator. You got so many. You got your mower, you got your what's it called? The trimmer, you got your snowblower. Everything has its own process, which is pretty similar, but the choke on this thing is over there. It's over there on this thing. I'm not a gear guy like that for lawn care and all this. I like electronics, but not that engine type of stuff. Even my car is electric, right? So I'm pulling this thing and it's not going to start, and I'm exhausted, and it's raining, and my wife's yelling at me. And then I reach a point, I got it started like 25 minutes in. I got it started. I had to nurse it a little bit. I had to keep that choke pushed down artificially, and I ultimately got it going, and it had old gas in there. And so I went downstairs, flipped the switches. We had electric. But again, it's precarious. It doesn't feel perfect having a generator. It's just not the best situation. But I got it running, and then I figured, you know what? I'm going to stay around home today. I'll work from home. I'll go find a coffee shop close by. My nanny was coming that day, and she actually told me to shut the generator off and to flip the line back on because you don't need it in the day. We're in May. It's light enough. You're not who cares if you have lights in the kitchen? The fridge is important, but if you give it a little bit of juice of coolness, just make sure you don't open it too much after that. But otherwise, it's just, you don't need the generator, and it's just so loud. And the other thing she said is if the power comes back on, I'm not going to know. Now, you do end up realizing you will know because the things that aren't on those 6 generator switches, those will come on. And that was actually later in the day because we got the word it was going to end up being 6 p.m. It ended up being 6:10 p.m. I came out of the bathroom, and my basement lights I could see under the door were on. That meant we were good. So she didn't even want it on. So she didn't care. My wife didn't believe me. She's like, well, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have. And I'm like, no, she wanted that. It's okay. But anyway, I went down to the Dunkin' Donuts, and I have to tell you, I'm not going to do that again. The internet was abysmal. It kept coming off and going on and coming off and going on. I couldn't get a lot of my work done. But man, I enjoyed my large coffee. Got like some kind of turkey egg white and cheese, or turkey egg and cheese, turkey sausage egg and cheese, something or other. And I enjoyed it, and I sat there, and you had a lot of the other electricity refugees coming in to charge their phones, to charge their bodies with some caffeine, to just kind of sit around aimlessly waiting for their power to come back, refreshing that First Energy Corp website where it kept giving you the alerts. It's almost like you're refreshing it, like you're refreshing the when a new iPhone comes out and you're pre-ordering it. So it was a funny thing, but I'm not going to do it again. I'm just not that into the internet at the Dunkin' Donuts was literally bad. I'm trying to do go-to meetings and calls and it's just shutting down. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I went over to the Acme, which is what used to be A&P, got myself some Sprite Zero. Don't tell my wife, because I knew I was going to have some Grey Goose and Sprite Zero a little later. Hey, when the power's out, get your alcohol in. You ever notice how many cars are at the alcohol store, at the liquor store, when there's a storm or when there's a power outage, but especially when there's a snowstorm? That same snowstorm, which you're probably going to be back out and free and clear in 12 hours, and that includes sleeping time, and yet people go and basically raid out the liquor stores like they're going to drink. Like, we're going to be out for 10 days. We need alcohol. We're going to be with our kids. We need alcohol and lots of it. We're coming out with these huge cardboard boxes of alcohol, almost as if you're shopping at the Costco for alcohol, how much people get. It's funny. But there I was getting my Sprite Zero in the cans because I was going to have my Grey Goose and Sprite, which was which was refreshing. Then I came up over the mountain. I also got my gas. Big mistake for me. I had my gas can in the car, and I was going to get the gas filled up when I was done with the Dunkin' Donuts. So I was like, let me open the windows to my car, because the gas has that little distinct smell, and it's in your car, even though it's empty, but it kind of wafts around. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden it's pouring. My car got destroyed. The entire insides of my cars by the window was just completely soaked, all for a stupid gas can, which wasn't even going to be that big a deal. But anyway, got out of there, got my gas can filled up. And since my son was going to nap, I didn't want to go home and disrupt things. I still needed internet as well. So I went up over the mountain back to my favorite coffee place, Cloveberry, got some lunch, got a decaf latte, saw more electricity refugees, including a mother of a child who goes to my son's same school. Everyone was sort of waiting this thing out. And apparently the Cloveberry and the school on the same road there, a couple of roads down, or a couple of doors down, they all had electricity, of course, because they were on the police office grid, which is even one door down from there. So that's always fun. I wish I downloaded more things to my device, though, so I could watch. Luckily, though, we had Daniel Tiger downloaded already on a few of the iPads, and so I was able to intersperse that here and there for my son Liam, so he could watch some Daniel Tiger, have a semblance of his normal life. The poor kid, the poor electricity refugee. But yeah, you realize how important technology is to you, even though you don't appreciate it all when you have it. That's why I kind of like this idea of the 12-hour shutdown. Like I'd almost look forward to it. I know I sound like perversely weird, but I'd look forward to, the 20th is coming. What do we want to download to our device for tonight? It's like glamping, and it would give everything a chance to reset. It would give the electricity systems a time to be quiet for that 12-hour period when we're not overusing electricity in that time. Well, granted, we can't shut hospitals down, all that down, even though they have generators. But, there's some critical things we're going to want to keep open. But I kind of like this idea. It's communist, man. It's shared experience. It would be a lot of fun. Last thing, I talked about kind of moving over to YouTube TV and cutting the cable. I still haven't cut it, although I plan to. But this was a many-phased situation. The first thing I had to do was to up my internet. And I decided I'm going to go to the 70 megabits per second internet. The next one up, there's a 105. Maybe sometime I'll go there. It's only $10 more actually than the 70, so it might be worth it. But I didn't like that you were breaking the $100 threshold to get to that 105. The 70 was like $93 if you were to get rid of the phone and the cable. And then all of a sudden the 93 plus the 35 that I'm grandfathered in for my YouTube TV. And I'm looking at somewhere in the, like the 120s. That's a pretty good deal for your quote-unquote triple play, for your cable and for your internet. And obviously you don't have phone, but you know what I mean, akin to triple play. I'd be saving $50 a month at that number. So I thought, let's go to this. But I found out the modem I had couldn't go over the 20 megabits per second I had, which is abysmal. But when you have cable and the internet is sort of a secondary thing, and you're mostly streaming through the Netflixes of the world or the Hulus, which actually don't eat as much data as you would think, as much bandwidth as you would think. YouTube TV does, maybe because it's the live thing. That thing is eating 12 to 15 on the reg when you're watching it. And so when I have a 20, that will really show itself quite intensely. My wife starts picking up her phone and the stream goes pixelated. And she puts her phone down and it comes back. That's how tenuous the internet delivery and the internet needs of the streaming service were. And so I decided, all right, let's do this in some stages. Let's move up. And I'll move up. And I ended up calling my cable and I said, I'd like to move up to this. And they looked at the modem and they said, you can't do it because that's an old modem. We don't even service that anymore. So one, you're going to have to come into Service Electric, get the new modem, and then we can upgrade you. So I actually took a work from home day and went in, got the new modem, hooked it up. I was getting 70. Great. But I started trying to stream things, and I noticed even with my speed tests, I was only getting less than 20 still. And that's on the Wi-Fi. Now, when I hooked in the actual modem directly to the computer through Ethernet, checked that speed test, I was getting the 6570. So that was legit. So now I realized, even though I've upped my internet, this old router I got is now the bottleneck. It is now not giving me the internet I even need, even though I have the capacity to get 70. It's crapping out around 15 or 18 or 20. That's not going to make it happen. So now I'm thrown into the world of figuring out how the whole routers work. Routers have been a blind spot to me. They're not something I've ever been that into or understanding of. I'm not a gamer, so it's never been important to me. I'm just a streamer, man. And so I'm looking into stuff. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm putting Facebook notes up. I'm talking to colleagues. And it came down to either this spaceship looking, I think, Linksys router, which is a single point router. And what you end up finding out, it's a big learning curve. I mean, first of all, the router I have is probably from 2009, or that was at least the last time they had a patch update. So that's old. We're talking like 9 years old, trying to stream to modern devices and from modern internet. It wasn't working. And so I come to find out, though, that if you get that really high level, it almost looks like a spike looking spaceship. Like it's it has all these it almost looks like it's going to fly off in the night if you're not holding it down. Like that's how ridiculous it looked. It looked high level. But then I come to find out at the bandwidths or whatever network connections that you need to run at now, that they can't go through walls as well as the ones from, 5 to 8 years ago, which could go through walls easier. So now I'm like, all right, well, that's not even going to work anyway. That's going to suck. So I come across this thing called mesh networks, and everybody started telling me, oh, get a mesh network. This person's get a mesh network, get this kind of mesh network. And then people at work were like, oh, get a mesh network. So then I'm like, okay, I'll get a mesh network. And I ended up getting Google Wi-Fi. I figured, you know what? I got my YouTube TV. I trust Google's user interface, their processes, and it was comparatively cheaper, and Best Buy even had a deal for it. So I think it was on a Friday, I stopped and bought the Google Wi-Fi. I set it up, and what it does is it comes in a 3-pack when I buy this one, and you can buy more of them, but it's this mesh network, as it says. So it's 3 different routers, not repeaters. It's not something that's trying to boost the bandwidth, or not trying to kind of push the bandwidth around the house from a single point. It's literally 3 points, which are routers in themselves, just as powerful. So you hook one up to the modem. I put that in the office. Then I put one in my basement, and then I put one in my living room, like at the high level up on top of the mantle of the fireplace, because I figured in that open air room I have, which is a 2-story great room, it could reach upstairs well. And I'll tell you, it is fantastic. You are covered all over the house. Everything's streaming great. I'm getting my 40, 50, 60, 65 megabits per second on the download, and I'm pumped. And Google Wi-Fi's got a cool app, as Google products do, so you can see what devices are hooked. You can prioritize different devices. You can see which devices are pulling down how much of the bandwidth, how many megabits per second on each thing. It's great. You can kind of track what services use how much, so you have a much better window into what is going on in your house with the internet. And now that I have all this internet, it's been great, and my streaming's been good. So I think I'm at the point. I think I'm ready to cut. I believe it is time. So streaming is going well. I did my Peloton bike today, which I got to start doing more of. The Peloton bike is that thing. It has it's a beautiful looking stationary bike, very futuristic looking. And then it's got this Android tablet hooked to it. And on that Android tablet, you can hook into real classes happening at the New York City bike studio for this cycle studio, or all the classes pretty much ever are on demand as well. So you can just fire up an on demand and go into that class. And so, there might be 3,000 or 3,500 people who have taken that class. There might be 40 or 50 who are taking it with you at that one time, even though it's on demand. And so now that I have the one router in the basement that's able to hook to that real well, I'm in a good place. I'm in a really good place. So I couldn't recommend the mesh network enough. Google Wi-Fi I really like. Samsung's I've heard is fine. Netgear I think has gotten in the game. I can't remember what the name of theirs is, but it's a very common thing now. I liked it being Google much for the reasons I liked the YouTube TV. I like that they're an internet company. Not to say Netgear isn't, but the consumer aspect of the app is really friendly for setting it up, for hooking it up, for going through the different processes. I do have to say the one pain in the ass is, and what I tried to do actually was make the same network name and then make the same password, force the same password as was in the old one, so that hopefully all the different devices, there's like 16 devices in my house hooked up to these routers. So there were 16 before, and all of those have to hook to the encrypted network. They need the password, they need the network name. And so I figured, well, if I just kind of Jimmy rig it or Jerry rig it so that you have the name of the network and then you have the same exact password, they should hopefully just pick it up and it works. The older Apple TV I have is not, and the pain in the ass with that, there's no way to hook these things up without that stupid original silver remote. And who knows, God knows where that remote has gone. My son loves little remotes, and they're probably in the recesses of some closet or some dresser drawer. I have no idea where it is. And so I can't get that Apple TV going because I use the app on the phone, the remote app on the phone. But for that remote app to actually work, it has to be on the same Wi-Fi network as the device. The whole point of this is I have to get the device onto the Wi-Fi network. So I have no way to start this thing or to go through those processes. So I did bring it upstairs and I hooked it into the Ethernet itself. I can get it, but there's no way to get the Wi-Fi network to hook up there because it's hooked to the Ethernet. So I got some work on that front to figure out. But really cool. The mesh network is really cool. I like it, and I can always buy another one if I wanted. Now it does say the 3 is more than enough to hook up a house that's my size, this mansion. No, I'm just kidding. But you can always, the cool thing with this thing is you can just buy a single mesh router from the store, just like a la carte. They're about $112, I'd say. The whole set itself was on sale for about $265. So that's a good deal for 3, because then when you look at one being $112, if you times that by 3, you're looking at like $340 or something. And so you do got to think financially about that, but you can just buy one, put it in another far off part of your house, and now that's hooked to the network with a couple of button pushes. So really, really cool. It was so I'm excited about it. I'm liking it. My house is looking good. I think I'm ready to cut the cord finally. Now I just got to go through with it. I got to say, it's not you, it's me. And the thing I like with the cutting the cord too is I love YouTube TV, but like if I wanted to, I could just be like, let's do DirecTV Now, which just came out with a major update, including cloud DVR and stuff. Because DirecTV Now has the MSGs, which is going to be key, I think, in the winter time. Like, I don't like the idea of not having MSG. And like even today, YouTube TV doesn't have WPIX, which is our local channel 11, which is where the Yankees and the Mets play their 25 or so non-cable network games. There's no way to get WPIX on streaming, it seems. So I'm illegally Redditing it through here. And that's kind of a pain. But you know what? I think it's time. That's a big savings, $50 a month, and to have a service that's a lot nicer looking and appealing to navigate through and that's hooked to all your mobile devices. Definitely been good. So I think that's where we are, my friends. I will talk to you later. Mesh networks to everybody. Bye-bye.